The second episode of the final season of Ted Lasso is here, and we saw AFC Richmond take on one of their first games of the season. With this episode not necessarily focusing on Ted, but it mainly focusing on the progression and development of AFC Richmond, whilst also leaning in on football to provide metaphors for Roy and Keeley's breakup whilst highlighting that they still wanted to be with one another. Let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this most recent installment. So let's get into it. Here is Ted Lasso Season 3 Episode 2 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. This second episode of the show started off with the song Lovely Day playing prior to the opening sequence rolling, and it's safe to say that the ending of the episode supported the use of the song. And it finished off with it being a lovely day for AFC Richmond, with a 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea and also securing the signing of world-class striker Zava. We saw that Zava was a player that AFC Richmond wanted to sign for a couple of different reasons. He was a world-class striker and he mentioned how he wanted to leave Juventus, but Rebecca also wanted him because Rupert was planning on signing him at West Ham, something which made Rebecca want to go out and sign him more. And we saw that she actually had the capability and power to do so. This was by getting inside of Zava's head and making him question if he was actually good enough, hence the decision to go to AFC Richmond, a club that would need a player like him and a place where he would most probably make the most difference to a team. So we saw him decline Chelsea and also West Ham in favour of them. With the entirety of the team looking pleased that they were signing Zava, there was one person in particular who wasn't, and that was the team's current number 9, Jamie. Every time Zava was mentioned in the episode, we saw Jamie turn his nose up and roll his eyes when people were getting excited by him. This is most likely because Jamie will lose his place as the team's starting striker when Zava arrives, so it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with that, if he'll drop deeper into the pitch, go to the wing, or if he'll be sat on the bench, something which could cause disruption in the dressing room. With Zava being signed, it certainly is alluding to the fact that AFC Richmond will most likely go on to win more games as they should be scoring more goals, tying into the narrative of them staying out of the relegation zone in the Premier League, or potentially going on to win a domestic cup, while West Ham could be in a different position. I don't think that this is actually confirmed, but it certainly seemed as though Zava was a character that was based off of Zlatan Ibrahimovic, judging by the personality, the fact that he was a world-class striker, and also the fact that he was playing in the Italian league. It makes me think that Zava was based off of the legend that is Zlatan. Let's delve into the different endings for the characters. Roy. It felt as though Roy got one of the main focuses in this episode of the show. This was due to the breakup that he went through with Keeley being revealed to the rest of the team. Everybody was showing him sympathy, and it was something that allowed him to respond in a typical Roy fashion. He didn't want it, despite the fact that on the inside he was hurting. We saw that he had beef with journalist Trent, who had been hired to write a book on AFC Richmond. We later went on to find out that all of this was because he wrote a hurtful article about a then 17-year-old Roy when he made his debut in the Premier League. But by the end, we saw them squash it, and Roy actually ripped up the article that he kept in his wallet for all of those years, showing that he had well and truly moved on from it. Right at the end of the episode, we saw that Roy was speaking with Ted about how when he returned to Stamford Bridge during the game, a place where he was formerly captain, he felt quite sad. He mentioned how he regretted leaving the club when he did, and if he could go back, he would have stayed and just enjoyed himself a bit more, and not worried about the fact that he was getting old and waiting to be dropped. This was definitely a metaphor for what he's feeling about his relationship with Keeley that was cut off in the first episode of the season. They broke up due to their busy schedules and feeling as though they didn't have the right amount of time to spend with each other, but they are both definitely regretting the decision. And with Roy saying how he wished that he stayed at Chelsea and enjoyed himself more, he's comparing that to his former relationship and he's wishing that he'd stayed, so I feel we will see them get back together eventually. Keeley, like Roy, is feeling the breakup and she's dealing with it in a completely different way. Unlike Roy, who has people and a team around him, she doesn't really have anybody. We saw that she was struggling to get on with her employees because they're extremely focused on work and aren't letting their personality come through. But that didn't stop Keeley from trying to bring it out of all of them. I feel the moment that she got a breakthrough was when she went into her CFO's office and she saw the snow globes. This allowed her to spark up a conversation about that, allowing her to learn the first thing about her co-worker for the first time. So I feel we will see her progress in bringing the best out of her staff. There were looks that Keeley emitted throughout the episode that also showed that she still had feelings for Roy, such as when the crowd were chanting his name and also when she reluctantly took her bag off of him. We also saw Rebecca tell a story of how Rupert won her over back when they first started dating, and even though she was using it as a way of highlighting that Rupert was trying to woo Zava, you could see that Keeley saw the romance within it and was tying it back to herself and Roy. So the both of them are definitely wanting to be with each other, but they're not addressing it. Not yet anyway. Ted. Ted didn't actually contribute that much to the development of the plot in this episode. He was more of a supporting character. He eased tension in the dressing room between Roy and Trent and made the decision to allow Trent to write the book. Other than that, there wasn't actually that much involvement from him. I thought we'd get more about him missing home and battling with the conflict within his mind of whether or not he should be in the UK or back in the States with his son. But he seemed fully committed to his decisions in this episode. But I imagine that's going to be the main overarching story that we're going to have in this third season, which I'm looking forward to seeing more of. I thought this episode was pretty good. I think the first episode of the new season had more of an emotional pull on it, but this one had the well choreographed and nicely shot football scenes that always look so good in the show. The team had more of a focus in this episode, which is something that was also needed after the previous episode not really being focused that much on the team. I personally feel as though we'll return to seeing inside of Ted's mind in next week's episode. I feel this was almost like a first episode for Roy and Keeley, allowing them to have the focus and seeing all that was going on with them and how they truly felt about each other. I thought Roy had some great moments in this week's episode too. His humor is so different to everybody else's in the show and it always cracks me up. His resistance to the team sympathizing with him and his friction with Trent were two things that were extremely funny. I'm looking forward to seeing how Zava entering the team is going to change the dynamic and how it will improve AFC Richmond's chances of staying in the league. We saw nothing of Nate in this episode either, but we heard that he got a victory over Leicester, so he's had a good start to the season, so I imagine his ego is probably getting bigger and bigger. Bring on episode 3. So, there you have it, Ted Lasso Season 3 Episode 2, Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.